And a good Tuesday evening to everybody. I'm Meteorologist Eric Weglarz for WeatherOptics, and we're tracking some pretty nasty weather across portions of the southeastern United States, particularly over portions of southern Alabama, southern Mississippi, back into the Florida Panhandle, even portions like Louisiana. You were seeing some severe weather earlier, and that's continuing to develop and push eastward. I want to show you this one blob of storms here, or it looks like a blob that's currently formed over portions of southern Alabama. Again, it looks like a blob until you go to the base velocity. You notice that there are some very strong, even to some severe winds there. And you notice this little area here by Grove Hill. As this line pushed across the state line, ironically between portions of Mississippi and Alabama, this state line right here, you notice that this is a very pronounced squall line and a bow echo. And the apex, at the apex of the bow echo here, we had winds in excess of 75 to 85 knots. Indicating some very severe winds. Now again, this is about 3,000 feet above the surface, so not at the surface, but above in the atmosphere, lower portions of the atmosphere, but still very strong winds, and that translated to some strong winds to the surface as well, leading to some damage. So I can take you back a little bit here. Actually, I'll bring you forward. You notice as in time, the winds at the apex of this bow echo here continue to get stronger, and the bow echo became very pronounced. And you notice these greens out ahead of here. So you have this very pronounced bow echo here, a severe thunderstorm, but there's some greens and there's some yellows, indicating some rain out ahead of the storm. Because the P watts are so high in the atmosphere currently, the amount of moisture present, there's a lot of rain out ahead of these storms, and that's why some of these tornadoes that formed today, you saw a lot of rain around them. It's not something you can easily see, and that's still the case for these thunderstorms as well. However, it's a little bit safer, not a whole lot safer. Any severe thunderstorm is very dangerous, but as opposed to a tornado, you kind of have a little bit more of a fighting chance. You can kind of get an idea as to, okay, what's coming here. There were some rotation spots to the north here as the storm was developing. Again, the main story here, and the main story that will continue tomorrow, is a very loaded atmosphere, very moisture rich, a lot of shear, and this is going to translate to these storms that are not only wrapped in precipitation that are dangerous, but a lot of destructive straight line winds as well. I'm going to take you into the SPC mesanalysis and give you an idea as to what's going on currently in the atmosphere. And notice that we have a very well-developed area of low pressure. It's at 996 millibars, something too crazy yet. However, this is very well defined from what we saw previously over portions of northern Mississippi. And this is going to continue to jog to the east-northeast across portions of the Tennessee River Valley, portions of northern Alabama, and eventually into portions of the Ohio River Valley. Now, as this does, in turn, we're going to see a very strong low level jet and a lot of moisture funnel out of the Gulf of Mexico into these southeastern portions of the United States. So places like Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, the South Carolina area, down into Florida, you're going to see the low level jet really crank tonight, and that's going to up the winds and up the amount of moisture too. So we'll start with the moisture, the precipitable water content. And notice that again, we're at 1.6 to 1.7 inches of precipitable water in the atmosphere. That's actually pretty intense for something this time of year. Again, the low level jet just continues to feed moisture into these areas. And that's going to allow for very heavy rainfall, potentially some flash flooding in areas that see repeated amounts of rain move over. But again, the main story is these storms will be very rain-wrapped. Now we'll go over to the shear as well. Actually, we'll start with the 925 millibar analysis to give an idea as to what the low-level jet is doing here. I'm going to focus your attention here in portions of Alabama. Notice that the low-level jet is at 55 knots in some areas, 45 to 55 knots at 925 millibars. That is absolutely insane. We go over to 850, even stronger. We're looking at 55, 65 knots. The stronger winds are really allowing for these storms to not only become embedded in a deep shear environment, but can become very strong as a result of this. And this energy, this wind, and everything will begin to jog to the east-northeast later tonight into tomorrow, and that's where the severe weather concern is going to end up. I'm going to show you the bulk effective shear to show you again the shear that these storms can tap into, 70 knots across portions of southwestern Alabama, really showing you again the bow echo that formed out in portions of southeastern Mississippi and moved northeastward. It's tapping into all of this energy, all of this shear, and that's really causing it to do well. Surface-based CAPE has died down. We did have some breaks in the sun today, and that allowed for the surface to heat up a little bit. The majority of the CAPE is across portions of the Gulf of Mexico. However, still 1,000 joules of CAPE during the nighttime is going to really help these storms continue to go here. The shadings of blue indicate convective inhibition, or where the atmosphere is more stable. As the storms did push through, the cooler rain that falls out tends to stabilize the atmosphere, and it takes a little bit more energy to really get these storms to get going again. And again, tomorrow that won't be the case to start. However, later in the afternoon, as storms do move through, we'll see this inhibition begin to pop up behind some of that rain-cooled air. And we're going to start with some of our forecast models here, thanks to Weather Ball Analytics. And we're going to start with our simulated radar reflectivity, or what the radar is projected to look like in time. And we're going to start the clock at around midnight tonight here. We're going to move back one frame there. And notice, I'm going to catch your eye here, this line of showers and thunderstorms off the 18Z NAM here. The 18Z NAM is depicting that this line of showers and thunderstorms will continue to advance across portions of northern Alabama into portions of central Tennessee. We've expected this for the last couple of days. Notice we get some other spotty portions of convection across portions of North Carolina and in South Carolina. That pushes out to sea, out into the Atlantic Ocean, and this line continues to develop. Now notice that the line kind of dies out, and should die out. This is expected as nighttime goes on. The atmosphere has a chance to really cool down a little bit, really allow for these storms to die off a little bit. I want you to notice that we have some convection over here across portions of North Carolina and South Carolina, but we have some convective convective breakoff. So the remnants of convection from the previous day begin to move over the areas we're expecting for severe weather tomorrow. Now, given that, we're expecting that things will get going later in the day after this remnant convection moves through. So just remnant spotty showers, maybe some heavier rain bands begin to push through. I want you to notice that low pressure is really starting to deepen across portions of Mississippi and Tennessee here. And as a result, we have this huge swath of precipitation really starting to form across portions of the Ohio River Valley back into portions of Illinois and Indiana. Now, as we go on through the day tomorrow, so 7, 9 a.m., notice that this huge swath of snow not only develops to the north here. We have a lot of diverse precipitation types going on here. We have snow, sleet, but also to the south here, we still have some convection. So we see some thunderstorms start to fire off in portions of Georgia and South Carolina, but the main action still hasn't started up here. We still have some convective debris that's hanging around tough here. And as we advance through a little bit later in time, notice 11 a.m., we see this spotty convective nature here. So we see some potentially some supercellular activity begin to fire east of the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia and North Carolina. This predominantly is going to take place in the Carolinas. This supercellular activity forms and begins to push eastward. That's at noon tomorrow. As we advance the clock 2 p.m., notice that this supercellular activity begins to look a little bit more linear in fashion. There's still some cells ahead of this, and it begins to jog rapidly to the east-northeast. So now mainly Virginia is going to be seeing more of this activity. As we go on through the day, notice that these cells move off to the north, and as ahead of this cold front, notice that we have this line that starts to develop here. So later towards Wednesday evening, we transition from supercellular activity to more of this linear fashion of cells here. I want you to notice that, again, this goes from just the tip of southern Pennsylvania all the way down through Virginia and North Carolina. And this line of storms will really start to get cranking as it moves off to the northeast. The NAM wants to try to depict some sort of bow echo later on in the period. Whether this happens, we'll have to wait and see as we get farther out. But again, still very interesting to notice that the severe threat potentially could extend farther, even to the border with New York State, as opposed to staying farther to the south. Now, we're going to compare the high-resolution rapid refresh, the HRR at 3 kilometers in resolution. I'm just going to show you the simulated radar, so the 24-hour experimental HRR. And we're going to take a look at some of the comparison and some of the differences that we start to see between these two models in time. So we're going to start at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. You notice this huge swath of snow wraps back in behind this area of low pressure that continues to develop. We have a huge band of rain out ahead. But again, notice we have some of that, again, pre-fire convection, maybe some convective debris still hanging around. As our storms begin to move east of the Appalachians, notice that we start to see more of an increase in activity. So the HRR wants to sort of limit the amount of supercellular convection that might pop up across portions of North Carolina and Virginia. However, this line of storms does begin to fire right here across portions of North Carolina and Georgia towards the end of the model run here. It'll be very interesting to see. So you notice this line. It's very well-defined line across Virginia and the Carolinas. Again, maybe some supercellular activity across portions of Virginia. And that's what I'd highlighted yesterday when talking about some of the severe weather we'll be seeing tomorrow. I'm going to also take you through some of the other parameters here, other forecast parameters that the NAM puts out. So I'm going to go back to the NAM here at 18Z. And one of the biggest ones I had highlighted yesterday was the amount of CAPE that could be loading up in the atmosphere. So ahead of this line tomorrow, before we see that line push through, I think we'll see some breaks in the clouds. We'll see some surface heating. Not a whole lot to really get things going, but just enough where the CAPE will begin to really bolster up anywhere between around 1,200 to 1,800 joules of CAPE. That's just going to add to the high instability environment. So the low-level jet will continue to translate to the east. As it does so, it's going to stack up with some other factors here to provide us a nice day in severe weather. The other thing I will show, I take this for face value. I'm not entirely sure as to just how big the tornado threat will be tomorrow. It won't be as significant as what we saw in Mississippi earlier on today. However, there's still the threat for tornadoes. I'll get to that in just a moment. But this is the significant tornado parameter on the NAM. Notice that by 4 o'clock tomorrow Eastern Time in portions of Virginia and North Carolina, we're talking about values anywhere between 4 and 5. That's pretty impressive, especially for a wintertime, late winter severe weather setup like this. They're not too common to begin with. But notice again these very, very high values in the significant tornado parameter. This moves east, and we'll see anywhere between 5 to even as much as 6 across portions of Virginia. Now, I'm not entirely sold that we will have a lot of tornadoes to begin with. However, there is the potential, especially in the supercellular activity that does form out ahead of this line, and even the line itself, for some spin-ups to occur tomorrow. So keep that in mind as you're making your plans tomorrow to really keep an eye out on the severe weather. Make sure you have any preparations necessary as you go out throughout your day in the event that a tornado does occur. So I'm going to take you through some of the graphics we have here. Our first is the SBC outlook for tomorrow. I want you to notice that we have the enhanced outlook for severe weather. This is across portions of North Carolina. This is going to really be in places that start to heat up and see the strongest of the low-level jet tomorrow, which no surprise is going to set up right along here. So along this axis from North Carolina, east of the Appalachians, into portions of Virginia. Elsewhere, the slight risk does extend from central Virginia eastward into Maryland, and down through portions of South Carolina and North Carolina for that matter as well. The marginal risk to the north of that. And there is a spot in Kentucky we are noticing as the low develops. There could be a brief area of convection late tonight into tomorrow morning across these areas. However, that's brief and ends up falling apart as it hits West Virginia along the spine of the Appalachians. Elsewhere, we will see the threat for some showers and even some rumbles of thunder and thunderstorms north into portions of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Connecticut. On the second map I'm going to show you here is our storm intensity, what we're going to expect tomorrow as far as the strength of storms and what we could expect from these storms in general. So I'm going to start off here. Look at our red. Red's our severe storms. This is our highest threat for severe storms. Exists across portions of eastern Virginia, back into the very, very tip of Maryland there, down through portions of North Carolina and South Carolina. There is a tornado potential in the black dashed outline. I don't think we will see anything crazy as far as the development of tornadoes. However, the tornado risk does exist. Check back with us tomorrow morning as we'll have more updates on what just exactly you might see as far as the extent and the intensity of tornadoes tomorrow. Elsewhere, strong storms will exist from portions of Delaware back into central Maryland and most of Virginia back through the portion of the Tennessee Valley, eastern Tennessee, along the spine of the Appalachians. The storm threat does tend to decrease the farther north you go. The atmosphere will be more stable. We'll be seeing more rain, which will kind of keep things more capped off. We won't see as much of instability bubble up. However, I did show you that line earlier that does begin to push its way across portions of central Pennsylvania, and that's why I included this moderate risk for storms, for thunderstorm activity, rather, to move all the way up into central Pennsylvania. If the NAM does prove to be correct in its thinking tomorrow, then we could be seeing moderate to strong to locally severe thunderstorms extend into central portions of Pennsylvania and quickly die out as they move eastward into portions of New Jersey. So tomorrow, what can you expect? We were expecting some long duration rain and shower-like activity. However, we will be seeing strong to locally severe thunderstorms across portions of the Mid-Atlantic. This includes Virginia into the North Carolina area. North of that, we will see some thunderstorms do develop tomorrow afternoon and push their way through the region tomorrow evening ahead of a cold front and a developing low pressure system that does continue to work its way northeastward across the eastern United States. Stay with WeatherOptics. We'll have the latest information of the latest preparation that you can take ahead of severe weather that we'll see tomorrow.